Hi guys, welcome to another video. Now today we're going to be looking at something that Warlord have sent me over, which is their new expansion for Hail Caesar. Now this is their Arthurian expansion, Once and Future King. They've also sent me a box set of their Heroes of Camelot and also a pack of other Arthurian figures as well. Now this is the second volume in their Dark Age saga. The first one was Shield Wall, and this one's going to allow you to sort of play Arthurian Dark Age based battles. You can now get the supplement from Warlord Games for £20, and if you order it from their website or if you use the little affiliate link down below, you'll get an Agravain figure as well. They've also repackaged some of their older models now in the Warlord resin and added a couple of new ones for their Heroes of Camelot set. So I think what I'm going to go do is I'm going to have a look through the book. Oh, hang on a second. Was that? Yep, that's Galos, the statue at Tintagel, which I saw a couple of months ago actually, and I really liked. Anyway, sorry, what we're going to do, we're going to have a look through the book, but first I'm going to take a look at the miniatures, show you what they're like straight out of the box. I'll go away and paint those, and in the meantime, what I'll do is we'll go through the book. It's not going to be a deep dive page by page, but we will have a good look at some of the special rules, some of the characters, the scenarios, and there are a couple of campaigns in here as well. And then at the end, we'll have a look at how all of those figures came out, and there'll be some pictures at the end as always. Anyway, without further ado, let's crack on with it. So here is the pack, the Heroes of Camelot, and again, I seem to be getting better at actually getting into these, so it didn't take too long at all. Now, this pack is the sort of newly packaged set, and you get a set of shield transfers here. Now, I'm probably not going to use these. Warlord have Little Big Men Studio transfers made for them by Little Big Men Studios, so I'll probably be ordering those because I want them to fit in with a lot of the Arthurian models that I already have. Now, like a lot of their new models, you get these plastic 25mm bases in here, and I will be using these. And this entire set is made from the Warlord resin. I believe this is the newer recipe, but you also get some metal shields and weapons as well for those models that need it. So after sort of giving them a bit of a quick clean, you can see this is the Arthur figure. Now, I do like this figure. I like the sort of the crispness on the scale armor. I'm not a huge fan of open hands for weapons. I kind of prefer that the weapon was actually sculpted onto the body, but we'll see how that one comes out. This is Arthur's sister, if you believe the legends. This is Morgan Le Fay, and this one I really like. I do really like the pose on this, like she's taken off her cloak, and I think we can do some fun things with some pigments on that to make it look dirty. Now, here we are. This is obviously going to be one of my favorites. This is Merlin. Now, on the box set, he's kind of done in this blue, but I like the idea that he's a bit of a grungy druid, a bit like the Warlord Chronicles, if you've read the books by Bernard Cornwell. So I've got some ideas about a colour scheme for him already. For the rest of the miniatures, I think we're just going to sort of see how things go. Now, this is Mordred. This is Arthur's bastard son, if you follow parts of the legend, and we'll talk a little bit more about how this fits in with the legend a bit later on. But this is quite an imposing figure compared to the others. It's not hugely out of scale, but he is quite chunky, but then I think that might have been done on purpose. Now, this model here is Gawain, who's one of the classic sort of Arthurian figures, but to be honest, he kind of could just be any hero, while this one is Galahad. So yeah, I'm interested to see as these kind of are a bit more basic compared to the other models, but I've got some ideas about what we can do to make them stand out a little bit. Now this is Lancelot. Now I do like the sort of different style of armor he's got in there, but overall I'm pretty pleased. These sculpts do seem pretty crisp. I've only worked a few times with the Warlord resin, and I can already see a couple of areas I need to clean up again, which I thought I'd done. And this is Guinevere, who's obviously very, very stylized and not particularly in what sort of a Dark Age / early medieval dress would look like. But this is the thing with this supplement. It's going to be covering both sort of a more fantastical and legendary sort of era as well as historical. So I'm going to get these all primed up and ready. I'll probably be using a Wraithbone undercoat, and I will be single basing these. Now that's for a very specific reason, which you will see when we have a little look through the book. But there's a few changes to the way that Hail Caesar works with these guys, and I'm quite excited about it. So I'll come back to those once I've got them painted. But in the meantime, let's have a look at the book here. So as you can see, we have a lovely full color front page of some nice new artwork, and as you can see, we have a decent, set of credits in here. It's been written by Murray Darm, and as I can say, sorry, I really do like that picture of the Gallos statue from Tintagel. As with all the Warlord supplements, this is full colour and it is pretty chunky, and there is a full contents page and historical note at the start about how you can use this and what the general idea is of this supplement. Now, this supplement is basically set around having heroic battles in, I'm going to keep calling it the Dark Ages, so sorry, Dark Ages, not early medieval, I'm going to say Dark Ages just to make my life easier. It's about that sort of heroic combat and having these Arthurian heroes leading things. Now, there's a fairly chunky set of text at the start of the book all about the historical Arthur and the different sources we have for him, such as Le Morte Arthur, the Geoffrey of Monmouth books, and back to some of the Welsh poems as well. And some of the text here is as good as stuff you would see in a decent journal or in decent historical textbooks. Now, there is a whole section here on the heroic leadership, and now this is what I was talking about. Now, in this game, if you're playing with this supplement, the heroes actually join the units from the start. So you will need to have your hero either attached to the unit in base to base or actually in the unit itself. Something which I think is really cool is that religion actually plays a part in this expansion. Depending on which nation or people you are, the religion will actually dictate who you can have as allies. And it really gets this feel over of this time period. As you can see, the first army list we come across is the Arthurian British, and you have all of their stats set out and their heroes, how you get those heroes, where we have Merlin in the army, what the different types of infantry and cavalry are. And one of the big lures for obviously playing as the Arthurian British is their access to heavy cavalry, which a lot of manufacturers make some nice models for, but I do really like these chunky warlord sculpts, and I will be trying to get hold of some of those hopefully for Christmas. Now, a big draw of this for me is the Heroes of the Age of Arthur. I love what they have done with this here. So in here you have rules for Arthur, Agravain, Gawain, Lancelot, a whole load of the characters from Arthurian legend, including some very, very obscure ones. Each one of the heroes has a set of special rules, and what happens is you roll to see which heroes turn up. You use this table down here, and you roll, and it might be Bedivere and Bors and Lancelot who have turned up, and you decide which divisions they're leading, and you pop them in a unit, and that's it. They are stuck in that unit for the rest of the game, and they lead from there. And each of them has some special rules. There's some that are better at fighting, there's some that give elite to the sort of division they're with, but it is not a small list, as you can see. There's a nice little bit of background in here as well, just about the personalities, and at the back of it there is a whole table which lists all of their leadership values and summarizes their special rules as well. And another cool thing here is the rules for Merlin. Now, Merlin may or may not turn up. You have to kind of agree with your opponent whether Merlin may rock up. It's very flavorful and a bit of fun, but if he turns up, he can do some fun little things which don't sort of hugely affect the battle, but could also just be quite flavorful. There's also a chance that some of the ladies of Arthur's court will turn up, such as Guinevere and Morgan Le Fay. But yeah, it's there's a lot of narrative flavor in here, and I think that's the main drive of this. Now, you can also use armies from the Age of Tyrants, so the period before Arthur, where we're looking at people like King Constance, we're looking at people like Vortigern, and then eventually Uther, Arthur's father, depending on which legend you're reading, and they all have rules here as well. Now, the big enemy of Arthur at this period, I think most people are aware of, are the Saxons, and they've got some special rules as well, and they can get things like pagan icons that can include things like a ring or a runic weapon, and these things aren't game-changing, but they do just add some flavour. They've also got some rules for the shield wall, which means that units will move at half speed if they're in a shield wall. They'll deduct 1 from their combat value, but they'll also add 1 to break test results and morale tests. So again, a lot of flavor. They also have their own leaders, which, a bit like before, are all listed here. You've also got army lists for the Irish, for the Picts. You've got army lists for the Scots. The Welsh are in here as well, and they all have their own little leaders and special rules to give you a little bit of flavour. And as I say, it tells you who they can be allied with. Now, one of the main draws of this period is also the usurpers. Now, this is basically looking at Mordred, Arthur's wayward bastard son, depending again on which legend you're reading, or you know, just one of Arthur's errant knights. Now, he can lead an alliance of sort of suspicious allies, let's say. So you could have one division of Scots, one division of disaffected Romano-British, and then you could also have some Irish in there as well, and have Mordred leading them. So that would be ace. I'm very tempted to build some Welsh to go with my Arthurians. Now, if you read the Geoffrey of Monmouth, The History of the Kings of Britain, Arthur even goes and gets involved and fights against the Romans in Armorica, in Gaul. So that's included in here as well, which is fantastic. And there is loads of content in this book. They've even given rules for Arthur going a little bit further east if you want to do that. I think that might be pushing it a little bit, but the rules are here for you to use. Now, we come across the first campaign in the book, which is called the 12 Battles of Arthur. Now, this essentially lists out the famous 12 battles of Arthur that are listed, that he apparently fought all up and down the country. But what the author has done here, it's really cool. They've basically selected areas of the country for you to fight in, and you decide which area of Britain you want to play this campaign in, and then the location changes based on the battle. As you'll see in a minute, there's a battle map, but I think this is a really nice touch. It would have been really easy to just go, it's here, here's one map. But, you know, they've gone to that little bit of extra effort so you can actually, you know, sort of really bring yourself and set it in a historical setting. Now, most of these 12 battles were fought near rivers. There's force lists in here, there's objectives, and full scenarios for all 12 battles. And I think that's pretty good. You can also obviously use these scenarios with other games as well, or just different forces. And there's nothing to stop you in here, you know, being a bit creative and adding and taking things away if you don't have all the models that you need. Of course, we finish here with the Battle of Badon Hill, which was Arthur's great victory. Now, the second campaign is the Pendragon campaign. I do love that term, Pendragon. It is awesome. Now, this one is a bit more of a traditional campaign where you actually have to kind of keep track of your armies. You have, depending on who wins, you have losses that you apply to both sides. And this campaign actually starts in the Age of Tyrants. It actually begins with the House of Constantine, what happens there with Ambrosius and Vortigern and Uther, and depending on the results of that, it has an effect on the next part of the campaign, which is when Arthur appears. So I'm quite drawn to this one. I think the other one, which is a linked series of battles, looks absolutely fine, but this one I think has much more of a narrative. And at the end of each of the sections of the campaign, you essentially roll to see what state the country is in, what is the state of Britain that Arthur is going to inherit at this stage. You then play through part 2, which will be about Arthur subjugating and bringing all of the kingdoms together, and then eventually you move on to part 3, which is with the sort of the end of it. You have the birth of Mordred, and finally we finish at the last battle, the Battle of Camelot, the famous battle where Arthur and Mordred came to blows and Arthur falls. And then at the very, very end of this, you have a big table, and depending on the results of the battles, you roll and you see how big the victory was. I am very excited about trying this. I do have quite a large Arthurian force already, so as long as I can get a couple of opponents to build up some forces, then we will be playing this and giving this a go. Also, the armies are a bit smaller at this period. Well, there we go. That is a look at the Once and Future King, and to be honest, I think this is a brilliant book. I was really impressed with the last Hail Caesar supplement, which was the Gallic Wars, but this has honestly really, really impressed me. very pleased with all of the work that's been gone into this, the combination of history and also all of these extra rules to really sort of sell this period. I think is really, really cool, and I hope we see that in the future with other supplements that are on their way as well. Anyway, let's have a look at the models. Now, these just took a couple of days to paint, and I tried, with the exception of the two sort of normal Arthurian looking chaps, to make these very individual and sort of stand out on the battlefield. Now, I did use the little Big Men Studio transfers, as you will see, and you can get those from the Warlord website. I'll leave links down below to all of this. So here is my version of Arthur, and this is just a quick take on the artwork on the front of the book. I didn't want to give him sort of bronze scale armor. I quite like just keeping his helmet gold with silver trim and then leaving the scale as a sort of a basic chainmail color. However, my friend lent me some AK Interactive full color chrome, which is very, very chrome, and I used it to edge highlight Excalibur. I thought maybe that would just sort of give it a little bit of a shimmer, and I did highlight odd scales on the armor to maybe give it that sort of fish scale effect, as the light sort of glances off of it. But I'm really pleased with him. I do like the pose, and yeah, I've tried to sort of make him look as regal as possible. Now, you'll see in a second what I've tried to do with him is sort of do an inverse of what I have done with Mordred here. Now, Mordred is quite chunky. I've done his helmet the opposite way around to Arthur's, which is a sort of chainmail metal base and then use gold trim. I love this miniature. This is one of my favorites in this set. Actually, it probably is my favorite, and I think he looks really, really imposing. I think he's going to look very, very cool on the battlefield, and as I'll be adding him to a Sabbat base with my Arthurians, I think he's going to look really, really cool in the front rank. Now, all my bases were built up with sort of ground mixtures using Tajima 1 tufts and just random bits of flock and dirt that I had lying around. And as you can see, I decided to do Merlin as basically a dirty druid. I tried to sort of do varying levels of cream and white and grey on him. And he's probably come out looking like a bit more like a sort of Gandalf the White rather than Merlin, but I'm really pleased with him. Guinevere I had a lot of trouble with. I wasn't too sure what to paint. I didn't want to do the blue on the box art, so I just kind of went with a basic white dress, a bit of a sort of light red pinkish sort of trim on things. But yeah, less said about her the better. I didn't think I did so well on her. But Lancelot here, I wanted to make Lancelot, Mordred and Arthur all very different, so they're identifiable on the battlefield as easily as possible. Here we have Morgan Le Fay. Now, I'm much more pleased with this than I am with the Guinevere model. I decided to kind of, go with some quite striking colours, go with the red and then the green. And I've used modelling pigments just to sort of make it look that maybe she spends a lot of time outside as opposed to Guinevere, who spends all her time at court. Now, this is, I get these ones mixed up all the time. This one is Galahad, and what else can I say? He's a typical Arthurian warrior. I just decided to give him sort of a dark blue grey trim, and then this one here, which is Gawain, I gave him a sort of a yellowish sandy trim and a blue shield. I just want it so they're easily identifiable, but if I'm not using them in game, I will be using them in other units. So there we have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this sort of look at the Once a Future King and the Heroes of Camelot. I will get the other set set up, and I've got another video coming out soon explaining how I'm going to go about actually gaming in this time period, because I've got a lot of models already, but they're all in various sort of different states and on single bases. Anyway, finally, thank you again, Warlord, for sending this over. What do you guys think? You tempted to, to go and have a look? Even if you weren't planning on playing this period, I think this book is really worthwhile because it can give you a lot of ideas, and a lot of the things in this can be used for other periods if you're using Hail Caesar as well. And there's a lot of scenarios in here for you to play. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to paint up that other pack of miniatures that they sent over, and I will see you all again in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.